morning, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
So today my title of my talk is Answer to Your Own Call, and I really feel that we've had a lot of that so far, and that's good. This will eventually work.
Do you want that closer?
It's good. I think I got it right now. Answer to your own call. I want to explore the idea of being called, of to do something, to be someone, to be greater than you are at the moment, to be allowing yourself to expand and become who you truly are, become the spiritual self. So I've used a few books, as I usually do. There's one I didn't bring, and it's called Angel Therapy. That was for myself, not for you. The Dragon Doesn't Live Here Anymore. I guess it was from the 80s by Alan Cohen, and it's just a wonderful book. I probably should be using it for every talk because it's just full of stuff, full of ideas. And The Call by David Spangler. He was in the early days of Findhorn and a great spiritual teacher in his own right. Let me read a passage. The fact that you are an incarnation is itself a gift, both to you and from you to the earth. And you are here because the earth has called to you. The earth has called to you at this time in history because it wants souls who expand their powers of lovingness and compassion. Souls who can begin to look beyond certain fixed and habitual positions, certain traditional perspectives, and say, is there more? And of course, yes, we know there is more. And most of us wonder at some time, who am I? What am I doing here? How did I get here? And what is my purpose? And many of us wonder, how the hell did I get here? So we may say this part of my life is a disaster and I hate it. But never, ever think that you're the only one having a disaster. Because if you are living in a body, which I think all of us are, we will have disasters and we will have victories. We will have great feelings of gloriousness, and we will visit the pits at times. If it helps if we answer to our own call and no one else's. And so how do we do this? We do this by becoming present and becoming infinitely curious about what is ahead of us, what is within us, and how we can use what is behind us to nurture what is becoming. And of course that means what we think about every day and how we use that power, that infinite power of creativity in our own thoughts. That's what will decide what tomorrow is like. And I know it's not easy to understand this, but how and what we think of today is what determines how our tomorrows will feel and how they will be for us. So the answer is always to listen within. So as you go through your day, stop and listen. Our spirit is speaking to us all the time. And whether we call it our angels, whether we call it our higher self, whether we call it spirit, it is our divine self. So stop and listen. Our spirit is speaking. Can you hear me now? I mean, that's a real question. That's a real question. Can you hear me now? Are you listening? So a concept that I've been thinking about for quite some time is, and this happens in the realm of politics for me when I'm listening to political news. What if I took responsibility for all of it? Not that it's my fault that these problems exist in the world, but what if I took responsibility for it? What if I knew that in my divine oneness, I am contributing to the creation of what I really love and also what I really dislike about the world? What if I took responsibility for it? So what happens when I do that? I say, oh no, this is not my fault. But there's some part of it that I feel responsible for. I feel responsible for. So at first it may guide you to experiencing pain. Because one thing that happens when we entertain a difficulty, we remember the pain that we associate with all that kinds of difficulties we've ever had. So, but what you need to do with your mind, watching yourself do this process, is begin to think about what you are thankful for and what is really good and what it is that you really love. So back to finding our own path. And we do, in fact, have to take responsibility for where we are now, for what we're thinking, and what we're creating in our own lives. And it also helps not to be too attached to what you've created, because some of it you're going to like and some of it you're not going to like. How did I get here with Parkinson's? I don't know. But it's my gift. It's not a tragedy. It's my gift. And I can do with it what I really want to. So there's a concept in psychology, and I think it's in psychology. I don't know how I happen to think of it or look it up on the internet, but another idea I have, that there is such thing as post-traumatic growth. That there are people who, when confronted with trauma, take it and use it to grow with. And many of us have done this. All of us have done it at some time. But of course, as it becomes part of psychology, there's all kinds of information about it. all the way. And I just think that's very interesting, because I like to think that the growing up I did in my family, it was traumatic. But I do know that a lot of people, huge numbers of people, particularly now in the Middle East, people are experiencing extreme trauma. And people come through it, and in spite of it. You know you've come through parts of your life in spite of them. And you have used this to further your own growth. So if the path, I found a quotation, if the path is open and clear before you, it is not your path. I like that idea because it's likely that the path we take, and this is a daily path or a weekly path or a lifetime path. It doesn't matter. The path is not always clear, but we must not get lost in our own confusion either. We must not allow confusion to run our our attitudes as we go about creating our day. And our paths are winding, they are obscured with people and quotations and we may stumble on the bumps in our path. So I have a few things to read. Despite all the questions raised by our meandering minds, we are in our right place, doing exactly what we need to be doing at exactly the right time. Because life is a school, we are always in the class that we have chosen to learn the lessons we need to master. Sometimes it is fun, and sometimes we have to work at it, but it is always appropriate. I was speaking to a woman who was struggling with questions about the direction she should take in her life. I shared with her my enthusiasm about the perfection of the right of consciousness. She looked at me and said, "You mean I'm in my right place?" And I answered, "Where else could you be?" So 40 years ago, so here's a little bit of my story. 40 years ago, I was living in British Columbia, Canada. I was living in, name of that city, the capital of British Columbia, Victoria. And I got the notion that I wanted to study massage therapy. The only school in Canada was in Toronto, and it was medically oriented, and I wasn't really interested in a particularly medically oriented school. And I learned there was a school in Santa Fe, New Mexico that was interesting, sounded interesting to me. And this meant leaving a cabin I had helped to build overlooking the ocean. This meant leaving my husband, Joe, my horses and my chickens and my cats. It felt crazy, totally crazy and scary, scary and scary and scary for weeks and weeks and weeks. At the same time, I kept asking, is this the right thing for me to do? And the answer always came back, yes. And it was complicated. It took me 6 months. But there was a clarity. And as sick as I felt to my stomach all the time, I could see it. I could see it happening. And in fact, it did happen. I moved to Santa Fe. I got somebody to help me build a camper for the back of my pickup truck, and I drove off into the sunset. I mean, I drove south along the coast. But I left behind all these things. I left behind my friends. I left a lot of pain in this relationship with my husband. I left a lot of pain in my friends and a lot of why would you do this question, and you will get questions. Following your own path is not an easy. It's fraught with problems, and you will find it easier to deal with the problems than to give in and not go. You will find it easier, but you may encounter a lot of backlash from the people around you. So I trusted my inner guidance. I followed it. And now, of course, I know it was the best thing I could have done for myself. But it took a while, it took a while. So forgiveness is an important thing also. As we go along, to forgive that which we can't change, and change the things we can, and let go of everything. letting go is a very powerful spiritual tool. If we don't let go, we're liable to be much more confused. And we're liable to use that inability to let go as an excuse for not moving forward, for not moving ahead. And it's not that it's not right, because it's something we do, but let's be aware where we are not allowing ourselves to move ahead. So I believe it is important to challenge ourselves. And of course, there's no age limit on challenging yourself. And as you age, as I've been privileged to do and learn from, the body starts changing. And this energy you had as a youngster isn't there anymore. And I'm thinking, where did it go? So it's important to challenge ourselves. There's no age limit, but there are things you want to do that you haven't done. There's always things to do, to be, to become, to know, to learn. Always things to learn. And I think that's one gift my father gave me in all the anger fits that he had that seemed to torture us kids. I think he inspired us to learn. He inspired us to keep going. And he kept going. And he kept learning. And after he retired, he would go to the library every single day for 9 years before he died. He went to the library. Every day it was open. So David Spangler talks about your background call, primal to any other call, and that call is to love and forgiveness. It's not just an attitude, but an activity, a behavior. It is just what we do and who we are. And now, a long time ago, I learned that my purpose was love, but it really took me 20 or 30 years to understand that how powerful it is, how powerful it could be, and that it took me so long to learn the selflessness that is absolutely essential for unconditional love. And the sense of service that I have in my life, and the sense of the guidance from God, the guidance from my higher self, when to serve. Up to that time, and that's within the last 10 or 20 years, that I got to a place where I didn't say, well, what am I going to get back? If I give something, what am I going to get back? I actually was able to stop saying that. And I believe that my way of serving now is much clearer and much holier, much more sacred. I feel the sacredness of sacred service. So let's see, there's a couple more quotes, I think. This is full of quotes. I think I have one or two. Anyway, I wanted to find another quote from this book. So, from A.A. Milne, you are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. Thanks to Rob for this quote. Yes, you. And now it's your turn to fill in the blanks, to fill in where I missed.